So hello and welcome to this demo of Codeship and continuous delivery in general. So let me just start the screen share so that you can see all of this. Now, can you all see it? I suppose so. Looks like it. So what I want to show you today is a brief introduction into continuous integration, continuous delivery, specifically with Codeship, and then a couple of tips and tricks that we've picked up over the years of building and running Codeship and using continuous delivery ourselves here. So let me get started by showing you a brief introduction to Codeship and what continuous integration and continuous delivery actually is. So as you can see here, this is Codeship. This is the main dashboard that you'll see when you log into Codeship and run your builds. So in this case, we have 4 different builds. A build, for those of you who are not familiar with this, is basically whenever one of your developers pushes to your source code repository, could be GitHub or Bitbucket, which we support, or any other specific source repository, we start a new build. Basically, we take that latest change and run all of your automated tests to make sure that everything works fine. The nice thing with continuous integration and having an automated system doing that is that you don't really have to worry about, does this change introduce any problem, any failing test or anything like that? Because every change that you do on any branch, anywhere in your repository, gets picked up, run automatically, and you get an information if it worked or not. So specifically with Codeship, we support many different languages, support basically for all different kinds of web languages. Most people are using Ruby on Codeship, but there's also a lot of Python, Node, Java, Scala users, and Go, of course, and many different other languages that people want to use on Codeship. To get started and for setting up a project, let me show you how that works. Once you're logged into Codeship, you can just say, okay, create a new project, and then select if you're either on GitHub or Bitbucket. In our case, let's do GitHub. And then you get a repository view. I say discourse here. I won't go click on that here because I've set it up before already, but from here, you get to the same view that I'll show you in a second. So you just click that I've shown you before. What I'll do here is I'll go to the test settings directly. The test settings, to everybody who already uses tools to run their automated builds to make sure their software works, is basically you just give us the same commands that you'd run on your own machine. So as you can see here, specifically if we select Ruby on Rails, for example, for all of you doing Ruby, you'll see that it's very familiar. We use a specific version of Ruby here with our VM. Then we bundle install our dependencies, load the schema, or migrate it, depending on what exactly you need, and then define different test commands here. So for example, rake or rspec or cucumber or anything like that. Of course, for other languages, same as well. So for example, here for the test commands, if you want to do Java, you just have Maven, SPT, and Gradle, Lining, and whatever your specific tool of choice is in your language of choices. You could just set it up here and running. And of course, same with Go, same with PHP, same with Python, or any other kind of commands. In the end, that's just commands that are running inside of a shell. So if it's what kind of specific command that is totally up to you. We just provide you the environment, and you run in there whatever you feel is necessary to run your build. Now, once you've set up all these commands, you can see the build running, as we've briefly seen before. So if I go here into the discourse project that I've set up before, we can see a build that I've started a couple minutes ago. You can see, let me just hide this here. You can see the whole output. So from git clone, and then here bundle install and everything you need, all the dependencies that get installed, and then afterwards the migrations that happen to set up the database. And once those migrations are finished, you can also see the tests that are loaded here. So that's all of the tests with coloring, of course, and everything included that is running here. So that as soon as the build runs, you're aware of what exactly happens and how your build is performing. And you'll get notifications via email, via Slack, or many other different services. So if we go to the notification settings, you can see GitHub, email. We have our own Chrome extension that you can use, and then all webhooks. In the end, you can automate it, of course, and through our API, do some other interesting stuff as well. Now, I mean, this really covers more of the CI side. There's a ton of more features in Codeship that can help you, from running your integration tests, running tests with Firefox or any other kind of browser. There's a lot more to explore there. And yeah, if you have any questions at any point, once you get started, always reach out to me or our customer support team. They're really fast, all of them engineers, and can help you immediately with all your problems. Now, to do continuous delivery, it's not just about the CI part. It's not just about testing, although that is a really, really important part. It's also about how do I actually run my deployment. And here is where Codeship also really shines. So what you can do on Codeship is you can set up different deployments for different branches. There's something that we strongly believe in that's called a repository-driven infrastructure. So what you want to do is that you automate the whole flow of software for your, and really your team should always only think about the repository and what is in which branch. Everything beyond that, every step that needs to be taken beyond that to deploy something should be managed by the system. So as you can see here, I've set up a branch production. So whenever I push to a branch production, this Heroku deployment runs. And this just pushes into a specific Heroku app, in this case, Codeship Demo Discourse, for example. We have a bunch of pre-built integrations. So you can just use EngineYard, Amazon S3 deployment, or other Amazon services, or any of the others here. Just give us some attributes, and we'll just run the deployment for you. We'll translate it into shell commands. But you can also always fall back to custom script. And custom script is just whatever command you want to run. For example, here I'm just echoing that I deploy. And here's a custom script. You can drag and drop this in any way, so it fits exactly to what you need. And now, because we have this branching kind of model and this deployment through branches, sorry for that, you can also add new ones. So for example, here I can say I want to deploy the staging branch, for example. So when the branch is exactly staging, we save that. Then I can do another deployment, for example, maybe into the Codeship Discourse staging app. And then I add some random Heroku API key. And now whenever I push to the staging branch of my repository, it'll automatically push into the staging application on Heroku, for example. And I can add any other kind of steps, any other kind of deployments in here. So you can really build your own workflow around this. And something that we, for example, do is we deploy first in our staging app, then through a custom script, we run our tests. So we do run tests against staging.shell. So now we run that. And as soon as that passes, we deploy into our production app, which means now it's Codeship Discourse production, for example. And then we do this. I mean, not specifically on that staging branch, but here is how you can set up different kinds of workflows and make those integrations and your custom script work for you in any way you want. And then all your team needs to do is pull requests. They think about what is in each branch. They open up a pull request. They merge it when somebody else reviews it, and it goes out into production or staging or any other kind of environment. Now, something that's really neat is something we have here, which is our wildcard deployment, where we can say the branch is either exactly staging or production, for example, or it starts with something. So you can say, like, I want to have QA/, for example, always deployed. So whenever a branch or a tag starts with QA/, it gets deployed into a specific application. So that's how you could trigger deployments into your QA environment, into QA applications very easily, all through the branches, all through tagging with a good history, because it's all in your Git repository, what happened exactly. And you see all of that, and all of your team sees that as well, because it's just on the dashboard for everybody in your team. Let me show you briefly how team management works there. And that's very easy and very visible for everybody, what's happening and what's changing in your infrastructure. So here's the non-organizations kind of view that you have. So we've recently released organizations, which gives you a lot, especially for larger teams, a lot more flexibility in how to manage teams, which teams have access to which specific projects, all that kind of stuff. So I can add other team members here by their email. So now that we've gone through a little bit of the configuration, let me just briefly walk you through how that looks in the UI. So we have two builds here. The first one is, as mentioned before, runs through all of the specs. We just take the exit status of the command, so totally standard tooling. Every tool supports that and does that. And if it's 0, then it's fine. If it's not 0, then we deem that a failed build. And let's look into the failed build on what exactly happened here. This one, I disabled the tests, just to make it a little faster. And here the deployment happened. And as expected, somewhere at the end, there's a red kind of connection error because the application doesn't have an Redis available. The Heroku doesn't have a Redis available, this specific one. So here you can see all the output, all the log statements. Everybody else on your team, everybody else who has access can see that exactly. And you can just go into Heroku and from then on start setting up your Redis, setting up your containers, setting up your infrastructure, and keep redeploying. Something that especially is for testing really important and for debugging is this open SSH debug session. At any point, you can just click this link. You have to give us your SSH key. And then you can just SSH into a machine and really like be in there, run your own shell, your own bash, and try out, test out, configure, and do anything that you like to really understand fully what is running in our environment. Because in the end, like we want to give you the control over the environment, and we want you to be able to do whatever you really feel or need to do in there. So this is really the small look into first steps with Codeship and how you can use Codeship. Is really there to make sure that you always test your applications. You have a strong and very automated workflow in place so that your developers can focus on building a product, building features, building really what's important to your customers, and not trying to manage deployments, not trying to manage the test infrastructure, all that kind of stuff that is very important, but really it's not the thing that you and your team should be working on. So that's really the gist of Codeship. If you have any questions, you can, of course, always reach out to me as well. I'm Florian Motlik on Twitter, or you can also just send me an email, flo@codeship.com. Any questions? Hey, oh, yes, of course. So the first question is if they are run in parallel. Let me just switch again into the screen share and show you this. So specifically, we go to the test settings. Something that's important is a feature that we've released recently as well is test pipelines. So in this case, I can activate the CI trial. The important part is that you want to make your build as fast as possible. Let me just open that up. Well, here is the demo gods. Thought it would happen earlier. So generally what you can do here is that instead of having just one pipeline, you can have a bunch of pipelines, which means that instead of running all of these test commands one after the other, you run them at the same time in different machines, on different hosts even, and which makes the build a lot faster. So you can split it up, and we have teams who have builds that would take hours to run on serially, split them up and can get them to run in 20 minutes or less. So that's really a very important feature of Codeship and something that makes, especially for larger teams, but even medium-sized teams, a lot of sense.